Captain Jake Morrison walked through the long halls of the Galaxy Assembly Building. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. He carried a small data pad in his hand. The message on it would change everything. The Galaxy Assembly was huge. It sat on the planet Nexus Prime, right in the center of known space. The building was made of white stone that seemed to glow. Inside, creatures from 300 different worlds worked together. Or at least, they tried to work together. Jake had been coming here for 10 years. He was Earth's military representative. He had seen every kind of alien you could think of. Some looked like giant bugs. Others were made of living rock. Some floated in tanks of water. But they all had one thing in common. When they had problems, they called humans to fix them. The main chamber was packed today. Jake could see the Zelthari sitting in their crystal chairs. They were tall and thin with blue skin that sparkled. Next to them sat the Mordan, who looked like bears with 6 arms. The Pelthans were there too, floating in their hover chairs because they had no legs. Jake's friend Lisa Carter was already waiting for him. She was Earth's chief diplomat. She had been arguing with aliens for 15 years. Today, she looked tired. "Are you ready for this?" Lisa asked him. Jake nodded. "It's time. We've been their babysitters long enough." The problems had started small. When Earth first joined the galaxy 50 years ago, humans were the new kids. Everyone was curious about them. Humans were different from other species. Most aliens were really good at one thing. The Zelthari were super smart, but had no feelings. The Mordan were great fighters, but couldn't think past tomorrow. The Pelthans were amazing traders, but only cared about money. Humans were weird because they could do everything okay. They weren't the smartest or the strongest, but they could understand how everyone else thought. When two species had a fight, humans could see both sides. They could find ways to make everyone happy. At first it was nice. Humans helped solve a few small problems. Everyone was grateful. But then something bad happened. The aliens got lazy. Every time they had a problem, they just called Earth. Why think hard when humans could do it for them? Jake remembered the first big crisis 5 years ago. The Keth Empire and the Vrex Coalition were about to start a war over some empty planets. Both sides had millions of ships ready to fight. Millions would have died. But instead of trying to talk to each other, they both called Earth. "Please send mediators," the Keth leader had said. "We trust human judgment." "Humans understand us," the Vrex leader agreed. "They will find a fair solution." So Earth sent diplomats. Jake led the military escort. They spent 6 months working out a deal. Both sides were happy. The war was stopped. Everyone praised the humans for being so smart and fair. But Jake noticed something scary. The Keth and Vrex leaders never talked to each other directly. They only talked through the humans. They had forgotten how to solve problems on their own. It got worse every year. Now Earth had human mediators in 50 different conflicts. Human soldiers were protecting trade routes in a dozen systems. Human diplomats were running peace talks on 20 planets. President Charles Webb finally had enough. Last month, he called Jake and Lisa to a meeting in the White House. "Look at these reports," Webb said, spreading papers across his desk. "We have 30,000 humans working full-time just to keep these aliens from fighting each other. Meanwhile, our own colonies need protection. Our own people need help. When did we become the galaxy's police force?" Lisa picked up one of the reports. "The Assembly voted last week to make human military service mandatory for the Keth-Vrex situation. They want to draft our soldiers for their war. A war that neither side actually wants to fight," Jake added. "They're just doing it because they've forgotten how to back down without losing face." That was the last straw. Webb made the decision that would shock the galaxy. Earth was leaving the Assembly. No more mediation. No more peacekeeping. No more solving everyone else's problems. Now Jake stood in the Assembly chamber, looking at hundreds of alien faces. They had no idea what was coming. The Keth representative was arguing with the Vrex representative about mining rights. The Sax and Trill were shouting at each other in different languages. The Zelthari were trying to use logic to solve an emotional problem between two other species. All normal problems. All things they expected humans to fix. Jake walked to the center of the chamber. The room slowly got quiet. Everyone knew that when a human stood up to speak, it was important. "I am Captain Jake Morrison representing the United Earth Federation," he began. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's speakers. "I have an announcement from President Webb." The aliens leaned forward. Some of them looked excited. They probably thought Earth was offering to help with more problems. "The United Earth Federation is leaving the Galaxy Assembly. We are ending all mediation services. We are pulling back all military support. We are closing all diplomatic missions. This is effective immediately." The chamber exploded. Aliens jumped up from their seats. Some started shouting in their own languages. Others just stared in shock. The Mordan representative roared so loud that the ceiling shook. "You cannot do this," screamed the Pelthan's trade minister. "We have contracts. We have agreements." "The Kethvrek situation needs resolution," shouted another voice. "Who will mediate the Sax-Trill crisis?" someone else yelled. Jake held up his hand. The room got quiet again, but he could feel the panic starting to spread. "For 50 years, Earth has been solving your problems," Jake continued. "We have been your mediators, your police, your teachers. But we are done. You are all smart species. You had your own civilizations for thousands of years before humans showed up. You can figure out your own problems." The Zelthari Prime Minister stood up. Her crystal voice was cold and sharp. "Humanity has responsibilities to the galactic community. You cannot simply abandon us." Jake looked right at her. "Watch us." Lisa stepped forward to join him. Behind them, the entire Earth delegation was getting ready to leave. They had packed their things that morning. "But the trade disputes," the Pelthan stammered, "will be solved by you," Lisa said firmly. "The territorial conflicts in the Morden began." "Are your conflicts to resolve?" Jake finished. The two humans turned and walked toward the exit. Behind them, the chamber erupted in chaos again. Aliens were shouting, arguing, and demanding explanations. But Jake and Lisa didn't look back. As they reached the door, Jake heard the Keth ambassador call out desperately, "What are we supposed to do?" Jake paused and looked back one last time. "Learn," he said simply. Then the Earth delegation left the Galaxy Assembly forever. Within hours, their ships were heading back toward human space. Behind them, 300 species faced a terrifying question. What do you do when your problem solvers quit? The first conflict started before Earth's ships even reached the border. Commander Alex Turner sat in the dark control room of Deep Space Station Echo. The station was hidden in empty space, far from any planets. Its job was to listen to radio signals from across the galaxy. Alex had been monitoring alien communications for 8 years. He had never seen anything like what was happening now. It had been 3 days since Captain Morrison walked out of the Galaxy Assembly. 3 days since Earth cut all contact with alien governments. Alex watched his screens as the galaxy started to fall apart. "Sir, we're getting emergency signals from the hegemony of Sax," reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez. She was young, only 25, but she spoke 6 alien languages. "They say the Trill Confederacy just attacked 3 of their mining stations." Alex was not surprised. The Sax and Trill had been arguing about those mining stations for 8 months. They had been waiting for human mediators to solve the problem. Now there were no human mediators coming. "What about the Zelthran situation?" Alex asked. "Getting worse by the hour," Amy replied, checking another screen. "The Zelthran Republic has completely blocked all trade with the Morden clans. Food shipments, medical supplies, everything. The Morden are furious." Alex rubbed his tired eyes. The Zelthran were pure logic thinkers. They made decisions based only on facts and numbers. The Mordan were all about honor and emotion. The two species could not understand each other at all. For years, human diplomats had translated between them. They helped the Zelthran see why honor mattered to the Mordan. They helped the Mordan understand Zelthran logic. Without humans in the middle, the two species just made each other angry. "Sir," called out Sergeant Pete Wilson from the far side of the room, "you need to hear this transmission from Keth Space." Alex walked over to Pete's station. The sergeant had been monitoring the Keth Empire's military channels. What Alex heard made his stomach drop. The Keth Emperor was talking to his war council. "The human mediators were supposed to arrive next week," the Emperor said in his deep, growling voice. Now Earth has abandoned us. The Rex Coalition will think we are weak. They will attack first. Another Keth voice replied, Then we must attack them before they attack us. Honor demands it. Alex knew this was exactly what Earth's leaders had predicted. Dr. Kevin Phillips had warned everyone this would happen. The aliens had become so dependent on human help that they could not solve problems anymore. Amy, what's the status on the Rex Coalition? Alex asked. Their fleet is moving toward the disputed border zone, Amy reported. Looks like they're thinking the same thing as the Keth. Attack before being attacked. This was a disaster. The Keth Empire had 2 million soldiers and 5,000 warships. The Rex Coalition was smaller but had better technology. If they fought, millions would die. Entire planets might be destroyed. But the worst part was that neither side actually wanted to fight. Alex had read all the intelligence reports. Both the Keth and Vrex knew the disputed territories were not very valuable. They had been pretending to want them because backing down looked weak. They had been waiting for human mediators to find a face-saving solution for both sides. Now there were no human mediators. Both sides were trapped by their own pride. Alex's communication board lit up with incoming messages. Aliens from across the galaxy were trying to contact Earth. They were begging, demanding, threatening. None of it mattered. Earth had sealed its borders. No messages were getting through. Sir, I'm reading massive fleet movements in Sector 12, reported Corporal Danny Lee from the tactical station. The Pelthans are mobilizing their trade fleets. Looks like they're trying to take control of shipping routes while everyone else is fighting. Alex was not surprised by this either. The Pelthans only cared about profit. They saw opportunity in chaos. While other species fought wars, the Pelthans would try to make money from the confusion. But the Pelthans were making a big mistake. They did not understand that their trade routes only worked because humans had negotiated the treaties that kept them safe. Without those human-made agreements, the trade routes would become battlegrounds. How many active conflicts are we tracking now? Alex asked Amy. She checked her displays. 17 separate situations, sir. And that's just the ones we know about. 3 are turning into shooting wars. The rest are heading that way fast. Alex looked at the big display screen that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked areas of conflict. 3 days ago, there had been maybe 5 or 6 yellow dots showing minor disputes. Now the screen was covered with red. The aliens had no idea how to talk to each other without humans to translate. Not just language translation, but emotional translation. Humans could understand why the proud Keth cared about honor. They could see why the logical Zelthran only trusted facts. They could relate to the Pelthans' focus on business and the Mordans' need for respect. Other aliens could not do this. They only saw their own point of view. Sir, we're getting a priority transmission from Assembly Headquarters, Amy called out urgently. Alex walked over to her station. On the screen was Counselor Veth, the Pelthan trade leader who often spoke for the Assembly. Attention, Earth forces, Veth said, his translator making his voice sound mechanical. The Galaxy Assembly formally requests immediate human intervention in the Keth-Vrex crisis. We are prepared to offer significant compensation. Alex almost laughed. They still did not understand. They thought this was about money. The message continued. We also request human mediation in the Saxtrill conflict, the Zelthron trade dispute, and the territorial disagreements in the Outer Rim. Earth's withdrawal is causing dangerous instability. Should I respond, sir? Amy asked. Alex shook his head. Our orders are clear. Radio silence with all alien governments. But he felt bad for them. These aliens were not evil. They were just scared and confused. For 50 years they had gotten used to humans fixing their problems. They had forgotten how to fix problems themselves. The communications kept coming. Desperate messages from dozens of species. Some were angry, demanding that Earth return immediately. Others were sad, begging for help. A few were trying to make deals, offering technology or resources in exchange for human mediators. None of it mattered. President Webb had made the decision. Earth was done being the galaxy's babysitter. Sir, Pete called out from his station. The Keth and Vrex fleets are getting close to each other. First contact in maybe 6 hours. Alex nodded grimly. Once the shooting started, it would be much harder to stop. The Keith and Vrex had been building up anger and fear for months. Without human mediators to help them talk through their feelings, that anger was about to explode. Amy, start recording everything, Alex ordered. Command will want a complete record of what happens when we're not there to stop it. As Alex watched the tactical display, he thought about what Dr. Phillips had said before Earth's withdrawal. The aliens had not just become dependent on human help. They had forgotten how to understand each other at all. Humans were not just mediators. They had become the glue that held galactic civilization together. Now that glue was gone. The question was, would the aliens learn to stick together on their own, or would everything fall apart? Looking at his screens full of red warning lights, Alex was afraid he already knew the answer. The galaxy was about to find out what happened when the peacemakers went home. Admiral Susan Baker stood in the war room deep under Colorado Mountain. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps from across the galaxy. Red lights blinked everywhere like angry eyes. Each red light meant people were dying. 3 weeks had passed since Earth left the galaxy assembly. 3 weeks of watching the galaxy tear itself apart. Susan had been Earth's top military strategist for 20 years. She had seen wars before, but nothing like this. Report, Colonel, Susan said to the tall man standing beside her. Colonel Ben Clark looked tired. He had been working 18-hour days trying to track all the conflicts spreading across space. It's getting worse, Admiral. The Keth-Vrex war has pulled in 6 more systems. The Eldoran Republic joined the Keth side yesterday. The Vrex got the Crystal Alliance to help them. Susan nodded grimly. This was what happened when you had a war with no mediators. Instead of staying small, conflicts grew bigger and bigger. Each side looked for allies. Soon, half the galaxy would be fighting the other half. What about the trade routes? Susan asked. Completely broken down, Ben replied. The Pelthans tried to take control of the shipping lanes while everyone else was fighting. Bad idea. The Outer Rim colonies declared the Pelthans to be pirates. Now we have shooting in 12 different trading systems. Susan walked over to the main display screen. It showed the whole galaxy from above. 3 weeks ago, most of it had been green, meaning peaceful. Now huge sections were red or yellow. Wars and conflicts everywhere. But one area worried her most of all. In the center of the screen was a black zone marked with warning symbols. Tell me about the sealed zone situation, Susan said. Ben's face got even more serious. That's the real problem, Admiral. 3 different powers are moving fleets toward the zone. The Dominion of 12 thinks the Keth are going to break the seals and take the ancient weapons. The Zelthari believe the Vrex are planning the same thing. Meanwhile, the Free Worlds Alliance is convinced both sides are working together. Susan felt cold fear in her stomach. The sealed zone was not like other contested areas. 500 years ago, an ancient race called the Builders had lived there. The Builders had created weapons so powerful they could destroy entire star systems. Then something went wrong. The Builders vanished overnight, leaving behind their dangerous technology. For centuries, all the galaxy's species had agreed to leave the sealed zone alone. It was too dangerous. The weapons there could end all life in the galaxy if used wrong. Human diplomats had helped create the treaty that kept everyone away from the zone. Now, with no human mediators to talk sense into them, 3 different groups thought their enemies were going to break the ancient seals. Have any of them actually tried to enter the zone? Susan asked. Not yet, Ben replied. But our deep space sensors show all 3 fleets getting closer. The Dominion fleet should reach the outer boundary in 4 days. The others are not far behind. Susan turned to another officer across the room. What's the intelligence from Ryan's team? Captain Lisa Torres walked over with a data pad. Intelligence Chief Cooper's report is not good, Admiral. The aliens are completely lost without us. They keep trying to solve problems the way they used to, but it doesn't work anymore. Susan looked at the report. It made for depressing reading. The Morden clans had tried to negotiate with the Zelthari Republic about the trade blockade. But the Mordan only knew how to make emotional appeals about honor and family. The Zelthari only responded to logical arguments about efficiency and profit. Neither side could understand what the other was saying. The Sax and Trill had attempted peace talks on their own, but the Sax communicated through complex mathematical formulas. The Trill used color-changing skin patterns that showed their emotions. Without human translators who understood both systems, the talks had lasted exactly 17 minutes before someone got insulted. It's like watching children try to fix a broken machine, Lisa continued. They know something is wrong, but they don't have the right tools. Susan understood the problem. Humans were not just translators between alien languages. They translated between alien ways of thinking. A human diplomat could take a Keth honor-based argument and explain it in Zelthoran logic speak. They could take Pelthan profit concerns and present them as Morden family values. Other aliens could not do this. They were locked into their own species' way of seeing the world. What about the Assembly's new mediation council? Susan asked. Ben snorted. Complete disaster. They put together representatives from the 5 most diplomatic species. Sounds good. In theory. In practice, they spent 3 days arguing about what color the meeting room should be painted. The new mediation council was supposed to replace human mediators. The Pelthans wanted to focus on the economic costs of conflicts. The Zelthari wanted pure logical analysis. The Delphines wanted to consider emotional impacts. The Christek wanted everything decided by computer programs. The Vorthak wanted to follow ancient ritual procedures. Each species thought their way was, obviously, the best way. None of them could see why the others wanted to do things differently. Meanwhile, Lisa added, we're getting reports that some species are starting to panic. The Gentle Collective has completely withdrawn from Galactic society. They've sealed their borders and won't talk to anyone. Susan was not surprised. The Gentle Collective were peaceful plant-like beings who hated conflict. They had depended on human protection for decades. Without Earth to keep the peace, they were too scared to interact with other species. The Wanderer clans are doing the opposite, Ben reported. They've declared that civilization has failed and they're going back to their old raiding ways. Pirates everywhere. This was the cascade effect that Dr. Rachel Williams had predicted. She was Earth's top expert on galactic psychology. 6 months ago, she had warned President Webb that removing humans from the galactic community would cause a psychological collapse. Humans serve as the emotional center of galactic civilization, Williams had explained. We don't just solve problems. We provide stability. Other species feel safe because they know we're watching. Take that away, and they'll revert to older, more primitive behaviors. She had been right. Species across the galaxy were abandoning the cooperation they had learned over the past 50 years. They were going back to the old ways. Tribal thinking. Us versus them. Might makes right. Admiral, called out Lieutenant Mark Johnson from the communication station. We're receiving a transmission from the Galaxy Assembly. It's marked as emergency priority. Put it on the main screen, Susan ordered. The display changed to show the Assembly's emergency council chamber. Instead of the usual calm meeting room, it looked like chaos. Alien representatives were shouting at each other in dozens of languages. Some had walked out. Others looked ready to start fighting right there in the chamber. In the center of the mess stood Counselor Veth of the Pelthans. He looked directly at the camera with his large, sad eyes. People of Earth, Veth said, his translator making his voice sound desperate. We have made a terrible mistake. We took your wisdom for granted. We forgot how much we needed your guidance. The galaxy is falling apart without you. Behind Veth, Susan could hear other aliens arguing loudly. Someone was shouting about honor. Someone else was demanding logical proof. A third voice was talking about ancient treaties, please. Veth continued. We know we have no right to ask. We know we treated you poorly. But millions are dying. Billions more will die if the conflicts continue to spread. We need your help. The transmission ended. The war room was quiet for a moment. Should we respond? Lisa asked. Susan shook her head. Our orders haven't changed. Complete radio silence. But inside, Susan felt conflicted. She was a soldier. Her job was to protect people. Watching millions die while Earth did nothing felt wrong. At the same time, she understood why President Webb had made this choice. The aliens needed to learn. They had become too dependent on human help. Sometimes the only way to teach someone to swim was to stop holding them up in the water. The question was, would they learn to swim or would they drown? Looking at the screens full of red warning lights, Susan was afraid the answer might be both. Captain Nathan Harris stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching his screens with growing amazement. Outside his ship's windows, space was full of alien warships, thousands and thousands of them, stretching as far as he could see. 1 month had passed since Earth left the Galaxy Assembly. 1 month of watching the galaxy burn. Now the aliens had come to Earth's doorstep with the biggest fleet in galactic history. "Sir, we count 15,000 ships in," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker. 37 different species. They're all flying in formation together. Nathan was impressed, despite himself. Getting 37 species to agree on anything was nearly impossible. Getting them to fly their ships in the same formation was a miracle. The fact that they had managed it showed how desperate they were. "Who's leading this circus?" Nathan asked. "Fleet Admiral Zextar of the Morden clans," Sam replied. "He's broadcasting on all channels, demanding to speak with Earth's leadership." Nathan was not surprised it was a Mordan in charge. The bear-like aliens were natural warriors and leaders. Other species might be smarter or richer, but when things got dangerous, everyone looked to the Mordan for strength. "Put him on the main screen," Nathan ordered. The display showed Admiral Zextar standing on his command bridge. He was huge, even for a Morden, with dark fur and scars across his face. His 6 arms were crossed in a gesture that meant serious business in Morden culture. "People of Earth," Zextar said in his deep, growling voice. "I am Fleet Admiral Zextar, speaking for the United Species Coalition. We have come to demand your return to galactic society." Nathan almost smiled. They still thought they could force Earth to come back. They had no idea what they were really dealing with. "The galaxy is dying without your guidance," Zextar continued. "Wars rage in 23 sectors. Trade has collapsed. Ancient enemies are moving toward weapons that could destroy us all. You must return to the assembly and restore order." Behind Zextar, Nathan could see representatives from dozens of species. The blue-skinned Zelthari with their crystal technology, the floating Peltons in their hover chairs, the rock-like granites standing perfectly still. Even the mysterious shadow dancers who rarely left their homeworlds. "Sir, should we respond?" asked Communications Officer Jenny Brown. Nathan shook his head. "Not yet. Let's see what else they have to say." Zextar was still talking. "We know Earth withdrew because we took your help for granted. We admit this. Mistake. But the current crisis is beyond what any single species can handle. Only human wisdom can save us now." The transmission ended. Nathan's bridge was quiet for a moment. His crew was looking at him, waiting for orders. Nathan had been thinking about this moment for weeks. Earth's leaders had known the aliens would eventually come with threats or bribes. President Webb had given clear instructions on how to handle it. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," Nathan ordered. "All ships, all frequencies." Jenny worked at her console. "Channel open, sir." Nathan stepped forward, looking directly at the camera that would broadcast his image to 15,000 alien ships. "Admiral Zextar, this is Captain Nathan Harris of the United Earth Federation. I speak for my government and my people." He paused, letting that sink in. Then he continued with the words that would change everything. "You want to know why you need us? Fine. Let me show you." Nathan nodded to his tactical officer. The Defiance. Powerful sensors activated, scanning the entire alien fleet. But instead of looking for weapons or weak spots, they were analyzing something much more important. "Jenny, project the tactical analysis to all ships in the fleet." The main display changed to show a complex diagram of the galaxy. It looked like a medical scan of a sick patient. Red zones showed active conflicts. Yellow areas marked economic breakdowns. Black spots indicated complete communication failures. But The most important part was what the display revealed about the alien fleet itself. "Look at your own formation," Nathan said to the assembled aliens. 37 species flying together for the first time in galactic history. "Do you know why you managed to coordinate this fleet?" Nathan highlighted different sections of the alien formation. The Mordon provided military leadership. The Zelthari calculated optimal flight paths. The Pelthans organized supply lines. The Granites handled communications between different ship types. He paused to let them think about that. Each species contributed what they do best. You worked together as a team. You didn't need human mediators to make this happen. So why did it work this time when nothing else has worked for the past month? The answer appeared on the tactical display. Nathan's analysis showed something the aliens had not realized about themselves. You succeeded because you had a common goal that was bigger than your individual differences. You wanted Earth back so badly that you were willing to cooperate with species you normally can't stand. The display zoomed in on specific examples. Zelthari ships were flying in formation with emotional delphins, two species that usually hated each other. Mordon warriors were taking orders from logical Christek computers. Pelthans were sharing resources without demanding immediate payment. But look at your current conflicts, Nathan continued. The display switched to show the galaxy's trouble spots. The Keth and Vrex aren't fighting over territory. They're fighting because they're scared of looking weak. The Sax and Trill War started, over mining rights that neither side actually needs. The trade disputes are about pride, not economics. Nathan had studied every conflict report for the past month. Earth's intelligence services had figured out the real problem. You're not fighting about the things you think you're fighting about. You're fighting because you've forgotten how to communicate with each other. You've forgotten how to find common ground. The tactical display showed something else. Deep in space, 3 different fleets were still approaching the sealed zone. The ancient weapons that could destroy all life in the galaxy. Right now, the Dominion of 12, the Free Worlds Alliance, and the Zelthari Republic are all racing toward the sealed zone. Each group thinks the others are planning to steal the builder weapons. But our intelligence shows that none of them actually want those weapons. Nathan let that information sink in. The Dominion is scared the weapons will be used against their colonies. The Alliance is worried about galactic balance of power. The Zelthari just want to make sure the weapons stay locked away safely. All 3 groups want the same thing, but they're about to start a war that could end civilization. The alien fleet was completely silent now. Thousands of ships floating in space, their crews listening to a human explain their own problems to them. "We didn't just solve your problems," Nathan continued. "We helped you understand what your problems really were. We translated not just your languages, but your fears, your hopes, your needs." Admiral Zextar's voice came over the radio. "Then, return and help us understand again." Nathan shook his head. "No, you don't need us to understand each other. You need to learn how to do it yourselves." The tactical display changed one more time. It showed the alien fleet. But now it highlighted something amazing. In the past hour, while listening to Nathan's explanation, the different species in the fleet had started talking to each other directly. Zelthari analysts were sharing data with Mordon strategists. Pelthon traders were discussing supply problems with Granite engineers. Delphin empaths were helping other species understand their own emotional reactions. "You're already doing it," Nathan said quietly. "Right here, right now, you're working together without human mediators. You're solving problems as a team." For the first time in weeks, Nathan felt hopeful. Maybe the aliens could learn after all. "The question is," Nathan concluded, "what are you going to do with this knowledge?" In the silence that followed, the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. President Charles Webb stood in the White House meeting room, looking at the faces of his advisors. 2 months had passed since Earth left the Galaxy Assembly. 2 months of chaos, panic, and desperate alien messages. Now everything was about to change again. "They're offering us complete autonomy," said Director Helen Brooks, Earth's chief negotiator. She had just returned from secret talks with the alien coalition. "No more forced military service. No more mandatory mediation duties. We can pick and choose which conflicts we want to help with." Webb nodded slowly. The terms were better than he had dared to hope for, but he was not ready to celebrate yet. What about the territorial guarantees? Webb asked. Full recognition of human space as sovereign territory, Helen replied. No alien ships can enter without permission. No assembly laws apply to us unless we agree to them. Secretary of Defense Patricia Lee leaned forward. And the most important part? Helen smiled for the first time in weeks. We get permanent seats on all major galactic councils, veto power over any decision that affects human interests. Basically, we become senior partners instead of junior members. Webb looked at the report spread across the table. The aliens had learned hard lessons during Earth's absence. Some of those lessons had been painful. The Keth-Vrex War had finally ended 3 days ago. Not because of human mediation, but because both sides had figured out they were fighting over nothing important. The Mordan had helped them realize that honor did not require senseless violence. The Zelthari had shown them the logical costs of continued fighting. Tell me about the sealed zone situation, Webb said. General Patricia Lee pulled up a tactical display. Resolved without violence. The 3 fleets met at the zone boundary and actually talked to each other. Turns out they all wanted the same thing, to keep the ancient weapons safely locked away. Webb was amazed. A month ago, those same 3 groups had been ready to fight a war that could have destroyed the galaxy. Now they were working together. The Dominion, the Alliance, and the Zelthari have formed a joint monitoring committee, Patricia continued. They're taking turns guarding the zone. No one trusts anyone else completely, but they trust the system they created together. This was exactly what Earth's leaders had hoped would happen. The aliens were learning to solve problems without human help. More importantly, they were learning to trust each other again. Commander Steve Collins walked into the room carrying a thick folder. He had been appointed as Earth's first director of galactic relations. His job was to figure out how humans would fit into the new galaxy that was emerging. The transformation has been remarkable, Steve reported. 17 different species have started their own diplomatic training programs. They're studying human mediation techniques and adapting them to their own cultures. Webb was particularly interested in this development. Give me examples. The Keth Empire has established meditation centers in all their major cities, Steve explained. They're teaching their people to understand their own emotions before trying to understand others. The Vrex Coalition is running empathy workshops. They're learning to see situations from multiple perspectives. Steve opened his folder and pulled out more reports. The Zelthari are the most interesting case. They've always been pure logic thinkers, but now they're studying human psychology. They want to understand how emotions and logic can work together. This was the breakthrough Webb had been waiting for. The aliens were not just copying human methods. They were evolving their own approaches based on what they had learned from humans. What about the trade situation? Webb asked. Helen took over this part of the briefing. Much better than expected. The Pelthans have created a new trading system based on cooperation instead of pure profit. They realized that helping other species succeed was better for business than squeezing every credit out of them. The Pelthans' change was particularly impressive. For centuries, they had been focused only on making money. But during the crisis, they had discovered that stable, peaceful customers were more valuable than desperate ones who might revolt or go bankrupt. The Sax-Trill mining dispute has become a model for resource sharing, Helen continued. Instead of fighting over who owns what, they've created a joint mining operation. Both species benefit, and they're expanding the model to other contested areas. Webb walked over to the window and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, aliens who had been enemies 2 months ago were now working together. It was not perfect cooperation, but it was real progress. Sir, Steve said quietly, there's one more thing you should know. The aliens are calling this the Great Learning. They see the past 2 months not as a disaster, but as a necessary growing experience. Webb turned back to face his advisors. Explain. They're saying that humanity gave them the greatest gift possible, Steve continued. The chance to grow up. They realize now that depending on us for everything was keeping them weak. They needed to learn to stand on their own. This was the outcome Webb had secretly hoped for when he made the decision to withdraw. The aliens, had not just survived without human help, they had become stronger. The Galaxy Assembly has been completely restructured, Helen added. Instead of expecting humans to solve every problem, they've created working groups where different species collaborate on solutions. The Mordan handle military issues, the Zelthari manage logistics, the Delphins focus on emotional counseling. Webb smiled. The new system sounded much healthier than the old one. So what's our decision? Patricia asked. Do we accept their offer and rejoin Galactic Society? Webb looked around the room at his advisors. These were the people who had supported his risky decision to withdraw from the galaxy. They had trusted him when it seemed like everything was falling apart. We rejoin, Webb said firmly. But on our terms. We're not going back to being the galaxy's babysitters. We're partners now, not servants. Steve nodded. I've already started working on the new protocols. When humans do help with conflicts, it will be as teachers, not problem solvers. We'll show other species how to find solutions, but they'll have to do the actual work. This was the key difference. Instead of fixing every problem themselves, humans would help aliens learn to fix their own problems. It was like the old saying, about teaching someone to fish instead of giving them a fish. When do we make the announcement? Helen asked. Tomorrow, Webb replied. But first I want to talk to Captain Morrison. He's the one who delivered our withdrawal message. He should be the one to announce our return. Webb thought about how much had changed in 2 months. The galaxy had gone through a crisis that could have destroyed everything. Instead, it had emerged stronger and more unified than ever before. The aliens had learned to trust each other. They had developed their own diplomatic skills. Most importantly, they had discovered that they did not need humans to solve every problem. Ironically, by making themselves less necessary, humans had become more valuable than ever. The galaxy still wanted human advice and guidance, but now it was a partnership between equals, not a relationship between parents and children. Sir, Steve said as the meeting was ending, there's one more thing the aliens wanted me to tell you. What's that? Steve smiled. They said thank you for having the courage to let them grow up. Webb felt a warm satisfaction. Earth's gambit had worked. By threatening to leave forever, humanity had created a galaxy that no longer needed them desperately. And in doing so, they had earned something far more valuable than dependence: genuine respect. The universe was no longer in panic. It had learned to heal itself, and Earth had found its proper place as a teacher and partner in the community of worlds.